Okay, we call to order the regular council meeting of the town of St. Andrews on Monday, March 3rd at 6:35 p.m. The W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex in the council chambers. So the first one is the recording of attendance, and all council members are here except for the mayor, who's on with his family and on a family vacation. So enjoy your time off, Mayor. We wish you all safe journey there and back. We would like to recognize that we are on the land of the Peskotomuhkati Nation. We are on the unceded territory, traditional territory of the Peskotomuhkati people. Approval of the agenda. We will need a mover and a seconder, and also we need to add something under new business. So if you're okay with that, it's drumming and rattle workshop assistance grant, right? Correct? So, and that I will have a conflict, so I will have to declare myself out of the chair. Who goes in the chair? I'm the deputy mayor. Who goes?
Madam Chair, you would pick one of the councillors to act as a chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Knopper. So first of all, we need a mover for the agenda.
Deputy Mayor, sorry, I just wanted to add to, under new business, I passed out a document, but there's a form for the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board application. Got missed on the original agenda.
Okay.
So we need to add that. It was in the staff reports, but it just didn't make the motion template.
Okay, so we need to add that under new business as well. So could I have a mover? Councillor Heenan, and seconder, Councillor Gumashal. Any discussion about the items or the agenda?
So,
Mr.
Madam Chair, just so you know, you're making a motion for the first motion on the agenda, so that you've got your mover and your seconder. You're looking to amend, you'll need another mover and seconder.
Yes, okay. So the mover for the agenda, is Councillor Heenan, and the seconder is Councillor Gumashal. And now for the two items that we added to the new business, I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Bennett and Councillor Neal. Now, any additions or anything else? Okay, so now we need to move. We have to vote on the acceptance of the agenda. So all those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? I don't see anybody, so carried. Thank you.
So.
Two?
Yeah, second vote.
Oh,
you need as amended vote now.
Oh, I do need the amended vote? Okay.
So, Madam Chair, just so you know, you need the first motion to put it on the table.
Right.
Need the amendment, which you've approved. Now you need to go back and amend the agenda as approved.
Okay. So now we need to amend the agenda as approved. So do I need a mover and seconder? No.
As long as your first two are fine with the mover and seconder.
Okay with that, Councillor Bennett and Neal? Oh, and Councillor Gumashal and Heenan?
Councillor Heenan and Gumashal. Yes.
Councillor Heenan and Gumashal? Yeah. Okay. So all those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded?
Thank you.
So that's carried. So disclosure of conflict of interest, is anyone else besides myself? I have to disclose myself for the drumming and rattle workshop. Under new business. Anybody else have a conflict? And seeing none, we'll carry on. Presentations, we don't have any this evening, correct? And so now we have moved on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. So like the mayor, we'll go through these in record fashion, I hope. So the first one are the minutes of the 25/02/03 public hearing of objections to bylaw number 25-02, peddler, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks. And this was Monday, February the 3rd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Are there any errors or omissions in that one? But I need a mover first. Mover? Counselor Gumashall, seconder. Counselor Bennett. Are there any errors or omissions that we need to add? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? You abstained? Okay. Counselor Blanchard has abstained from voting. Carried, though. And so we'll move on to the second one. Minutes of the 25-02-03 regular council meeting, Monday, February the 3rd, 2025 at 6:45 p.m. Are there any, no, I need a mover and a seconder first. Mover, Counselor Heenan, seconder, Counselor Harland. Any errors or omissions to be added? Discussion? Okay, seeing none, go for the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded? Yeah, and Counselor Blanchard abstains?
Abstaining,
It's carried. The next one is the minutes of the 25-02-818 public hearing of objections to amendment Z 22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z 22-01, Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. I need a mover. Counselor Harlan, seconder. Counselor Neal. Any discussion, omissions or errors? Okay, question. All those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded, abstaining, Counselor Blanchard and Counselor Heenan. But carried. The next one is minutes of the 25-02-818 public hearing of objections to bylaw number 25-01A, a bylaw to regulate vehicular traffic in the town of St. Andrews, and then Tuesday, February the 18th, 2025 at 6:33 p.m. I need a mover. Counselor Neal, and seconded by Counselor Bennett. Sorry, Counselor Gumashall, he beat you. Any errors or omissions or any additions? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? 2 abstaining, Blanchard and Heenan. So the next one is minutes of the 25-02-18 regular council meeting of Tuesday, February the 18th, 2025 at 6:45 p.m. So I need a mover. Counselor Harlan, seconder. Counselor Blanchard. Any errors or omissions? Any additions? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Abstaining, Counselor Heenan. Those are all the minutes, so we're done those. Communication. We have a letter from request for Purple Day on March the 26th, 2025, which is a proclamation for Epilepsy Association of the Maritimes. And the motion that's recommended is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews proclaims March 26, 2025, Purple Day to support at the Epilepsy Association of the Maritimes. Do I need a mover first? A mover and a seconder? Mover, Counselor Bennett, seconder, Counselor Heenan. Any discussion on this, Council? No? So now we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, aye. Contrary minded? I don't see any, but Counselor Hurdle is offline,
It's all
so.
right, we'll note him that he's just
Okay,
absent
thank
from the vote.
So do I read the proclamation now? Okay, I gotta go to the page. Sorry, Council. 28. Yeah, I just gotta find it in my book. Page 29. So, the Town of St. Andrews Proclamation of Epilepsy Awareness Day, March 26, 2025. Whereas Purple Day is a global effort dedicated to promoting awareness in countries around the world, and whereas epilepsy is one of the most common neurological conditions estimated to affect over 50 million people worldwide and 42 people in Canada, that should be million, should it not be? Yeah, 42 million people in Canada are diagnosed every day, and whereas 1 in 10 persons will have at least one seizure during his or her lifetime, and whereas the public is often unable to recognize common seizure types or how to respond with appropriate first aid, and whereas Purple Day will be celebrated on March 26th annually to increase understanding, reduce stigma, and improve the quality of life for people with epilepsy throughout the country and globally. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of St. Andrews hereby proclaims March 26, 2025 as Purple Day for Epilepsy Awareness. And now, therefore, I, Kate Ackergy, Deputy Mayor of the Town of St. Andrews, support the proclamation of the mayor, of the mayors?
No, it should be.
It should be the mayor?
No, no, you stick it with that. It should be the epilepsy awareness. There was an
Sorry,
error there.
the Epilepsy Awareness
Day.
and Purple Day for the Epilepsy Awareness signed on March the 3rd, 2025, and in witness whereof I have set my hand and caused the seal of the mayoralty of the Town of St. Andrews to be affixed hereto. And that's that. Thank you, council, for bearing with me, and staff. Appreciate it. Okay. Explore St. Andrews, the monthly update to council. Staff, do we need to read it?
It's just in the agenda for council's prerogative. We don't necessarily need to read it.
So we don't have to read it. You have it in your package, council. So, we just vote on it, correct?
No, there's no vote here.
voting?
This is
Oh,
part
sorry.
of your communication, but you have a question.
Question?
Just a question for staff. I was expecting a more traditional sort of staff report from Explore St. Andrews. Seems like they put a lot of work into their snapshot, but I think something more in line with what the other staff reports would be more helpful for myself, at least. Specifics on what's happening each month rather than the kind of ongoing report that we got. I don't know how other councilors feel about that, but that would be my suggestion, to be a more specific progress
Yeah, more
snapshot.
detailed?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Staff?
We can ask, Your Worship, just bear in mind they're a separate organization, I know funded by the town, but we can ask them, this is something they send out to their stakeholders monthly, so it's easy for them just to include it, but we'll bring it forward next meeting in a couple of weeks, that we'd like to see a more traditional staff report instead of the kind of one-page summary.
Thank you very much. Mr. Spear. So next is the staff report from Mr. Spear with the reports.
Thank you, Worship. Madam Chair. Council, we are starting to see the remnants of spring, or we were, as we enter the melting season. Council and staff continue to have many initiatives as we move through the last of winter and into spring. I thank you for this opportunity to share a report of the same. Starting off, I'd like to give a brief date on the renewed zoning bylaw. Xander Gopin continues to work away as it and hopes to have a draft copy available sometime in mid to late March. Council has gone through multiple iterations of the municipal plan, and it will be ready soon for an early draft review. On the agenda tonight, the CAO Treasurer is bringing forward a resolution to consider amending the utility capital budget to address a funding shortfall. Last fall, when we were reviewing it. Staff were hopeful that we could get 40% of the value of our big projects in government grants. However, any federal grants are all focused on new housing initiatives and not infrastructure replacement. I am proposing to take $210,000 from our Utility Capital Reserve Fund, as well as increase borrowing by $130,000 to continue these projects. The two sections that need to be addressed on Prince of Wales and Carlton Streets have been on our list for several years for replacement. With the unknown economy, it could make it significantly more expensive to do this work in another year. So I'm recommending that we change the funding model and continue with this work in 2025. Now that the Heritage Bylaw has been approved and Mr. Gopin was appointed the Heritage Officer, we do need to enter into an agreement with the Service Commission on the provision of these services. This type of offering is not typical for other municipalities in our region, so this service is not part of the planning services agreement with the RSC. Before you tonight is an agreement worked out between our staff and theirs for consideration. They are proposing a reasonable fee that will be charged on a per-file basis as they come forward. They would also assume some of the liability associated with conservation bylaw permitting and continue to meet with the Heritage Board as needed. Though it should be noted, we're going to recommend that agreement be tabled tonight for reconsideration in a couple of weeks. Earlier in the year, Council went through a list of requests for financial support greater than $3,000 and approved them through an ad hoc committee of Council. Now we have several requests for applications under $3,000 and want direction if you'd like to set up another committee, use the same members as you had before, or bring the whole list to open session for discussion. 2 weeks ago, Council had the opportunity to meet with a couple of members of the RCMP to discuss their initiatives and provide feedback on any priorities from Council. It was a good conversation back and forth as they summarized challenges and successes. While the meeting was held in closed session, we can relate that the number of members in the region is increasing, and that should reflect in their visibility. The Algonquin would like to reduce the overall size of the spa project. In the normal scheme of things, this would be allowed without Council involvement. However, due to the terms and conditions put on the project when it was initially authorized, specifically mentioning a second floor, we need to amend those to ensure they stay within compliance. There is a hearing of objections scheduled for Monday, March 17th. Information on the proposed changes can be found on the town website or visit Town Hall for more information. Excuse me. There is a request before you to close Indian Point for the overnight hours of March 28th and 29th. This closure is to allow for a group, Cliff Valley Astronomy, to set up equipment and witness the partial eclipse early in the morning. They are bringing individuals from outside the local area to see this phenomenon and to hold meetings within St. Andrews for 2 to 3 days. Staff are recommending some conditions of the request to ensure everyone's safety. Administration. As most of you know by now, we ran into a fairly major water leak at the arena in February. A fairly common practice back in the day was to encase water lines and electrical conduit in the cement floor and walls. However, nothing is made to last forever, and we had a break in the main lobby that had cold water flowing to several rooms, including the change rooms and the main washrooms. Luckily, due to some work we did last year, we were able to get the change rooms going quickly. However, the older washroom off the lobby are a significant challenge in that the piping is encased in the floor and in the cinder block walls. Our operations manager and contractor have come up with a plan to fix the washrooms with council-approved funding. Although it'll be a bit late for hockey season, water should be restored to the lobby washrooms and canteen in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The Town Hall public washroom renovations are ahead of schedule and should be open at the end of this month as well. I wanted to give a brief update on the winter clearance budget. That's clearing of snow, not the clearance of a retail space. As of the writing of this report, our costs are up about $50,000 above the same point last year and about $30,000 above our year-to-date budget. For the 2025 budget, We reduced winter clearance as the previous few winters had been under budget. However, we do have approximately $242,000 in our general operating reserve fund that can be used to offset this if this will be required. This will be assessed later in the fall. As of the writing of this report, mulching was taking place along the main water line from Shamcook Lake up to the reservoir. We had notified all the individual landowners and met with anyone who had questions or concerns. The contractor operated quickly, and as of today, it's now completed. I would like to notify the public that the town has put up a request for proposal for the sale of land at 115 Sophia Street, as well as a tender for the provision of animal control services. If you are interested in either of these, please contact Town Hall or stop in for a submission document. The Department of Transportation Infrastructure gave a virtual presentation to municipal staff on the Provincial Municipal Highway Partnership, or the PMHP program, on designated highways that run through municipalities based on pre-2023 boundaries. For the town, this includes both sections of Highway 27 that run from Clark Road to the corner of Mowat Drive and Reed Avenue, and Bayview Drive. For this particular section, council can request refurbishments, but then the town is responsible for tendering and managing the projects. The town would be reimbursed for the completed work as long as DTI approved the funding in the project ahead of time. Although renamed, this program has been in place for many years, as and council has had some success over the years. In the last year or two, they have doubled the contribution on the program to $25 million. Regarding the additional roads of DTI, the mayor and staff met with their regional team a few weeks ago, and they have assured us they continually put in capital requests for known infrastructure issues, but the global ask across the province always exceeds the available budget, and many items are deferred. We are hoping, and we have arranged, another meeting with the department so the councillors in the Shamcook and Bayside wards can express their concerns. Just a reminder to everyone that the water bills were due today. We had some uptake on the water bill relief policy council issued last month, but not as much as I thought. We reached out to a few customers advising of the potential for relief, and they had come to address it. Under services, the Recreation Department has seen an explosion of the use of their senior programs since its inception in September, as they had 1,173 participants in their wide assortment of activities. The arena is being kept open a bit longer this year to the end of March, actually to the first weekend in April, as we have the opportunity to host a couple of tournaments and the long-standing Alpine Bonspiel. Excuse me. We're also moving through the stages of the Recreation Master Plan. Can you finish up the report, Paul?
Yeah. I want to thank all of those who took the time to fill in the survey as we look towards the future, the wants of the community. I am sure most people have seen it in action for training as the new ladder truck finally arrived. It is an important tool for our fire department as it increases the safety of for our staff and volunteers, but it also a needed apparatus for many types of instances, including chimneys or roof fires, accessing multi-story complexes, and can even be used in rescues for the various commercial wharves in our area. After a long wait and a town-wide boil order, the new strainer has been successfully installed at the water treatment plant. Thankfully, they were able to disinfect the equipment prior to it being put into service, so another boil order was avoided. The system has redundancies built in, but this will reduce the stress on the other strainer that has been in operation in isolation since the fall of 2023. Due to its age, we will likely push to have this one replaced as well in the next 3 to 5 years. With the slew of storms over the last month or so, the bylaw enforcement officer has been out throughout the night addressing vehicles in violation of the overnight parking ban. We are also working with the Service Commission so that we can keep an eye for non-permitted work as we do our other normal duties. We are not replacing the work of the building inspector, just aiding them as the projects can go up in a few hours or over the weekend when it starts to get harder and harder to detect. The primary reason for this is not to make sure we collect a fee, it is to make sure property owners are in compliance with our planning bylaws, so a concern is not found after the fact that requires a significant amount of time for staff and the PAC to address. Conclusion: the Winter Warmer Festival continues to grow, and they reported that they were very happy with the success of the 2025 event. I want to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day, and see there are a couple of events already planned for it. I also want to let the public know there is a partial eclipse around dawn on March 29th, so please come down to the point. There is an astronomy travel group, Cliff Valley Astronomy, who will have a few public events in the community that you can attend. As it gets closer, we will provide information through social media channels and posters in selected locations. Respectfully submitted, Chris Spear, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Spear and Mr. Knopper, for reading the report. Okay. So now we need to pass all of the reports as they were in our package. So I need a mover, Councillor Harland, and a seconder, Councillor Heenan. So ready for the question? No?
Questions?
Oh, are there any more discussion on any of the reports or what has been said? Councillor Heenan?
I would just like to say a good job on the washrooms at the town hall being ahead by a month in construction. Very, very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Spear?
Well, just a little funny incident. I was walking up to see them, and some poor gentleman walked in thinking they were open today, and walked in, was quite surprised to see workers there or installing things. So luckily, some of the local businesses agreed so we could point them that way to help relieve himself.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spear and Councillor Heenan. So are you ready for the question, Council? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? None. So carried. Now we can do the introduction and consideration and passing of bylaws and motions. And so the first one up is the Planning and Community Development Committee. Councillor Harlan and Councillor Heenan, and that's because Mr. Gopin is online too as well. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Akji. So this is reference number PCD 250102, and the subject is Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01 for first and second reading. The background is as follows. It's been identified by the planners at the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission and town staff that there needs to be text amendment changes to the zoning bylaw, specifically related to fencing. Challenges with this section of the bylaw have been highlighted, especially through the Planning Advisory Committee processes, and the bylaw processes to date are as follows. Public hearing of objections February 18th, 2025. Obtain views of the PAC February 19th, 2025. First reading, second reading, third and final reading. From the views of the Planning Advisory Committee, they are recommending that fencing in the town plat should be required to use traditional building materials or facsimiles. With the new heritage bylaw in place, it was noted the importance of preserving the historic town plat's look and feel. Concerns have been raised about chain link fences and how they impact the look and feel of the historic district. If council wants to make the change in the town plat for fences as noted by PAC, this will constitute a significant change to the amendment and would need another public hearing of objections. Otherwise, council can move to the first and second reading. So the first motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for first reading to Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01 for the Town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Harland. We need a seconder. Councillor Heenan. Any further discussion, Council? Mr. Knopper?
Council, please note clarification on the fencing. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Gopin, we're only talking the front yard fencing, not the side or rear yards, correct?
Your mic's not on.
Oh, hold on a sec.
This is just, you're right, Mr. Knopper, this is just for front and flankage, which are front corner yard fences. So only fences that are visible from public streets.
Any other questions? Is it just for the town plat? No?
Council, if you choose to look at going to facsimile or traditional building materials in the front yard and the flankage yard, you will need to call for another public hearing of objection, and that would have to be added to the amendment. And that would be your motion if you wanted to go that way. It would be setting a public hearing of objections. Otherwise, you have two motions on you for first and second reading. But Xander or Mr. Gopin?
Mr. Gopin?
Just to clarify, so as the amendment is now, it would require traditional building materials or the facsimiles in the historic business district. PAC's recommendation was to extend that to the entire town plat and environ, so more of the residential area. So if council wants to amend the bylaw at first reading and make that change, then you'll also have to call for a public hearing of objections for that change. If you want to continue with the bylaw as is without that change, then you proceed to first and second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Gopin. Council, what is your preference? Amend it to include the town plat or leave it as it is? Councillor Harlan.
So, as a member of PAC and part of the discussion around this issue, the challenge is without the amendment, fences in the town plat and in the environs could very much be chain link fences, which would really significantly challenge the look and feel of our historic town. So we're not suggesting that it be, we're suggesting that it be facsimile, so it doesn't have to be very expensive materials, but something other than chain link fences. And I would support that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Harlan. Any other discussions, council? Yes, Mr. Spear?
Not really, entering debate, but one of these things we talked about earlier was about transparency. And so you've kind of got, if chain link fences to be able to see gardens and stuff are more transparent than wood. But from the heritage aspect, I agree. It's just something to keep the balance that as council makes a decision on that. So even on the current Water Street, we have a few places with chain link fences, which I think look nice, but that's me. But nonetheless, it's just to keep that in consideration that if you put up these other materials, the transparency that we've also talked about being important is going to disappear.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Mr. Gummichel, Councillor Gummichel, sorry.
Thank you,
Oh.
Deputy.
Sorry, I just want to put, Councillor Harland already made a motion to amend, really, that she wanted to support having, going to the whole plat, I believe. Was that a motion to amend? So we need a seconder before we continue
Okay,
discussions.
we need a
Sorry.
seconder. Sorry, I missed that. Councillor Neal. And now Councillor Gummichel, you can speak.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just curious how this might affect like existing fences, like for example, the chain link fence at the high school soccer field, which is more than 8 feet high, or people like myself who have backyard gardens with, you try to keep the deer out, and so you have a page wire fence, for example. Lots of, I worry about passing a blanket bylaw without having wiggle room in there for common sense and existing and those sorts of things. I know I've struggled to keep the deer out of my yard, and my fence has grown over the years, but you can't see it from the street. So I'd be worried, just kind of came to mind. But definitely the high school soccer fence, other fences like around the Mallory field, like the different. Anyway. So I have concerns about extending it to the whole town.
No, you're pointing over there.
No, I know.
Counselor Hurdle? Sorry. Counselor Hurdle? Your microphone.
You're on mute, Counselor.
You're on mute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're still on mute.
You're still on mute.
How about now?
Now you're good.
Okay, sorry, I had to dial into my phone. I just wanted to make sure that deer fencing doesn't accidentally get caught under this as well.
Okay.
I
Counselor,
was going to wait for Mr. Gopin to
Mr.
jump
Gopin?
in, but
I can jump in right now.
Yeah, I
Okay, go
can
ahead.
speak to that.
Thank you.
So, as this would include fencing that has posts. So if we're talking just wrapping fabric around hedges, that's not considered fencing. We have a special thing for it in the bylaw. So this is stakes in the ground and some kind of barrier going between the stakes.
thank you, Mr. Gopin. Just a minute.
sorry, I
Mr.
just
Spear?
want Xander, can you follow up on Councillor Gumachel's concerns
Question.
too? But
About the
Non-conforming?
existing ones?
So it you could exempt non-residential uses. I think really we're only talking about front and flankage yard fences here. And I will say, as the bylaw was originally drafted, you would have been able to have chain link fences in those areas. So that I took that into consideration at the beginning. So I think if you want to go with the PAC revision, you could exempt institutional uses. You could have it only apply to residential uses in the town plat and environs. That might be the way to go.
Thank you. Counselor Harlan?
Mr. Gopin, what about existing fences? Those aren't affected any, correct? It's any new fencing?
So typically with existing fences, we consider like basic maintenance. If you're not dealing with posts, if you're not dealing with stuff that's in the ground, then it's kind of basic maintenance. We're not going to need new permits or necessarily meeting new bylaws. If you're replacing a whole fence, then we basically consider it a new fence. And at that time, like if you need variances or things like that weren't there originally, when there's soil disturbance involved, we look at it as a new fence needing to meet up-to-date bylaws. One thing I will say, this amendment, either way, it does make variances easier. It gives development officers a little bit more discretion, whereas before everything was going to PAC. So if there are certain cases, like let's say the high school needs to put a fence in the front yard to protect a garden, we could bring that to PAC if there's that change. But I think there's ways to deal with it. I think you just, my advice would be, if you do the PAC amendment, have that apply only to residential uses in the town plat and environs. So that would exempt schools, churches. I don't think there's really any commercial uses in there. The arena is actually in the town plat and environs, so that would exempt it. So I think that would split the difference pretty well.
Thank you, Mr. Gopin. Counselor Heenan and then Counselor Neal.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple of problems. One, it's the transparency issue. People who do put the chain link up are very conscious and very neat and want to see their gardens. And secondly, I have seen wooden fences fall into disarray within a 2-year period, looking very grungy and very unkept. And I don't see that as a plus for the town either. I've lived beside a wooden fence and I've lived beside a chain link, And I'm going to tell you, the chain link is far nicer than a wooden fence that's collapsing or falling down or whatever. And it does happen here. It does, if they're not put up correctly. I can cite lots of examples with wooden fences that have not been put up correctly, and they all look like train tracks that are not straight, and it kind of looks shabby. So I would not support the bylaw to change it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Councillor Neal.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess I'm still trying to decipher all this at the moment. So current chain link fences in residential yards are not affected. Is that correct, Mr. Gopin?
Sorry, I missed the first part. You said, I heard the chain link fences in residential yards, but
So
I missed the first part.
existing chain link fences, say in the front yard of a residence, would they be
Yeah, an
affected?
existing one, they're grandfathered in. There's no concern. Now, if they needed to replace the whole fence, which is less likely with the chain link fence than with the wooden fence, then they would have to come into compliance with whatever the bylaw of the day is,
And can you just
or
clarify?
seek a variance.
Can you clarify for me what the maximum height is in the front yard? I know it's right in front of me,
So, right now, the bylaw says anything between 3.3 and 6.6 feet has to.
You're freezing. You're frozen.
but has to go for a variance, I think is what he's saying.
Between in that sort of 3.3 and 6.6, it requires
Mr. Gop-
transparency.
Mr. Gopin, we lost
We
that
lost
because
that,
you
yeah.
froze.
Oh,
Could you
great.
repeat what you said? Sorry.
So, okay, I just have to start over. So the maximum height currently is, if you want to go over 3.3 feet in a front and flankage yard, anywhere in I guess the old town limits, you have to go to PAC for terms and conditions, and generally they've been requiring transparency, and these discussions around traditional building materials have come up. The change to the bylaw that was originally proposed would say between 3.3 and 6.6 feet. And again, this is only for front and flankage yards. Nothing else is changing. And the maximum height isn't changing. Up to 6.6 feet, you have to have that transparency. We don't really care how that's achieved. It could be chain link, it could be wooden slats, it could be wrought iron. The PAC amendment would just say in the town plat, as well as the historic business district, you have to have the transparency and you have to do it with the traditional building materials, which means you can't use the chain link. So that was kind of a long explanation. It's 6.6 feet is basically the maximum height in front and flankage yards in residential zones.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gopin. Does that clarify it, Councillor Neal?
Yep.
Any other discussion, council? So, we need to decide whether or not we amend the bylaw or whether we continue it as it is. Correct?
So, council, you have to first just look at, do you want to have, the first question is, do you want it to only affect residential properties or all properties within the town plat and historic business district? That's the first question you have to look at.
Okay.
Sorry,
Council, currently, the current amendment on the floor is to move the, in the town plat and the historic business district, that traditional building materials or facsimile are allowed in the front and flankage yards. That's your motion on the table. What you're being asked to look at is, do you want that only in residential properties, or do you want that across all properties within the town plat?
Councillor Blanchard.
sorry, just a question for clarification. I thought the amendment on the floor was to extend this out to the entire plat as opposed to as it is right now, which is this historic business district.
Correct. Yes, so it would be for the town plat.
So it's, the amendment on the floor, the vote is to extend it out to the town plat, traditional business, building materials, front and flankage. Okay.
So, what is your pleasure, council? Do you want that to be so, or leave it as is?
You should have a vote on the
So,
amendment.
we need to vote on the amendment.
Unless there's further discussion.
So that is the one that Councillor Harlan made? So, we need to vote on it. We had a first and seconder, mover and a seconder. So, and we've had discussion, so now we'll ask the question. All those in favor to the amended bylaw for this time, aye. Any ayes? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 ayes. And contrary minded, 1, 2, 3. And Jamie, well, it's the 3. Councillor Blanchard, Councillor Gumshell, and Councillor Hurdle, and Councillor Heenan. So it's 4 to 4. Oh, Councillor Weir didn't vote. So that makes it a yes vote, doesn't it, when he doesn't vote?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so it's 4 to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just a moment.
So we're missing, yeah, because I'm
Councilor Hurdle and Councilor Keenan, I believe.
I had,
3 and,
so,
and
yeah,
you voted with Councillor Harlan, right? Councillor Gumashell? So that's 1, and Councillor Bennett?
3.
You voted for it, 2. Councillor Neal is 3. Councillor Harland is 4.
right. That was-
Okay?
That was the 4.
And against is Councillor Hurdle, Councillor Blanchard, and Councillor Heenan.
Correct.
And Councillor Weir did not vote, so that is a yes vote.
Correct,
So there are 5 to 3.
correct.
So it is carried. Therefore, we need to make hearings, a night for the hearings of objections, correct?
Hold on, Marcia.
Okay.
The,
what did I not do?
so you've made the motion to add that to it. Now you need to look at, is that strictly for residential properties?
Okay.
Or are
industrial.
you going to do that for all
Institutional.
properties? Institutional, residential, mixed commercial, or
Okay.
sorry, mixed use commercial?
So we need to vote on that? No?
Somebody,
Somebody needs to make a motion.
Motion.
if
So
they
I
wanna
need a
support
motion
that.
to support either that it's going to be just residential or institutional. Councillor Bennett is putting this forward. We need a seconder
Councilor Bennett, you're putting it only for residential properties?
for
Thank you
residential.
clarification.
Okay, mover for residential, only for residential. Seconder, Councillor Gumashell. Any discussion on this, council? Just for residential.
Can I just,
Councillor Harlan?
can I just seek clarification? So we're saying residential, and what about the historic business district?
Madam Chair, the Historic Business District already has traditional building materials and facsimile in that.
Thank you.
It was the expansion of that
Okay.
from the Historic Business District to
Great.
the town plat.
Thank,
All right, so now we have our mover and we have our seconder for it to be only residential. Call for the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. And nay? Oh, so I think it's carried. Council, right? 1, 2. There was no nays. And Councillor Weir, he abstained. Well, so he's a yes.
Hold on,
right?
hold on, council.
Okay.
Can you please raise your hand for the yeas?
For the yes? For the, so that's
Thank you,
all of them.
that's all. And
Yeah.
abstain.
And
Thank you.
Councillor Hurdle is yes? So that's all of them. So it's carried. All right. So we return back
To the original motion, have to vote on the original motion now.
Okay, so we need to vote on the original motion, council, and we had a mover and a seconder. So all those in favor of the original motion,
Which is
say
better
aye.
than what?
Which is what? As amended. As amended. So the original motion as amended, that the council grants leave for the first reading of the zoning bylaw with the amendment. Correct? All those in favor? Aye. Please keep your hands up so we can see. Yes,
Your original movers
The
were...
original mover and seconder.
Yes.
And,
Arlen and Heenan.
okay, we have, and nay? Counselor Blanchard and Counselor Heenan. So it's carried. All right. Number 2, Counselor.
No, hold on one sec.
Sorry.
It sounds like we have to go to a meeting, hearing of objections again for those
Yes.
changes. So there's no
Yes.
sense going to second reading till we've gone through that, I think is
Okay,
what the
so-
clerk is recommending.
So, Madam
we'll-
Chair, if you want to read the bylaw by title for first reading,
Okay.
I will bring up the motion for...
So this is the bylaw, number Z2211?
Just a point of order, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to, for the record, I voted nay.
Oh, sorry, Counselor Hurdle. So it's still carried. All right, so I'm going to read it by title to the bylaw number Z22-11, a bylaw to amend a bylaw number Z22-01, being the zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. So the first section,
That's all you have to read, Madam
that's
Chair.
all I have to read? Oh,
All you have to
yay.
read, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So it'll go to, we have to have a hearing of objections, which you will bring that forward to us next
Well,
meeting.
no, I have a motion for you
Oh, you're
here.
going to do it right now?
Rather
Oh.
set it now. So that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, April 7th, 2025 at 6:30 PM for a public hearing of objections to Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z22-101 for the Town of St. Andrews under Section 111 of the Community Planning Act.
And I so move.
Yeah, and seconder? A seconder? Counselor Neal. So moved by
Oh,
Counselor
hold
Hart.
on. Sorry. Is it 111 or 110, Xander?
Se-
Well, sorry, no, it has to be 21 days.
Yes, that's why I'm
yeah.
setting
So
it.
as per
That's why I'm setting it on April 7th, which
July.
puts it beyond 21 days.
April 7th. Sorry, for some reason I heard March 14th in my head.
Please no.
No,
111.
April the
110
7th.
PAC
Sorry.
111 is public hearing.
Yeah, okay. So we have a mover and a seconder. Now we need to vote on this, council. So all those in favor, raise your hands so we get you counted. Aye. Contrary minded? I don't see any. Carried. Oh, except for Counselor Weir. He didn't vote again, so. Oh, did you vote? Sorry. Okay, so it's carried. Thank you very much. And we have the hearing of objections for the 7th of April, right? Okay. Sorry, I just want to write it down. Okay. Set 21. Set 22 dash. All right. Now, we aren't doing the second one of yours, Counselor Harlan, so the proposed service amendment, is that for the SNBSC for the
No.
Heritage Offer? We don't
No,
have to do
Counsel-
that either.
Well, no. So right now, Council, your next would be on page 74, which is proposed land for public purposes, All Saints Corporation consideration.
Okay, sorry, I skipped that one. Okay, so Counselor Harlan, we continue on.
So this is reference number PCD 250307, and the subject is proposed land for public purposes, All Saints Corporation consideration. And the background is as follows. The town of St. Andrews has received a request to look at a land for public purpose from the All Saints Corporation as part of a subdivision of land. The proposed land is located on Glebe Road in Shamcook. Please see the attached staff report from Judy Hartford, Senior Development Officer, for details. This file originally went to the Planning Advisory Committee for recommendations to the council on accepting the land. PAC rejected the request for LFPP based on the merits of liability, safety, maintenance, and limited use. To conclude the process, council has to decide to accept the land or reject the land being proposed for LFPP by the All Saints Corporation. And the motion is as follows, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews denies the request to accept the proposed land for public purposes on Glebe Road, Shamcook, as proposed by the All Saints Corporation. And I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Harlan. We need a seconder, Councillor Bennett. Discussion, Council. Oh, that's good. No discussion, so we'll go for the question. All those in favor? Aye. And contrary-minded? That's everybody, so it's carried. Thank you very much. Now I skip the proposed service agreement, correct?
No, you
No?
still have to bring it up, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then it's tabled. Okay, the third one, which is the proposed service agreement with SNBSC for the Heritage Officer and Permit Process for PCD 250305. Councillor Harlan.
This one's actually Councillor Heenan.
Oh,
Madam
Councillor
Chair.
Heenan, sorry. Left you right
Okay.
out.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. This is PCD 250305, Proposed Service Agreement with SNBSC for Heritage Officer and Permit Process. With the newly enacted Heritage Bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews and the appointment of a Heritage Officer, the town has to look at a new service agreement with Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission for Heritage Officer and permitting process. This was not a service included in the original planning service agreement. Please see the attached document for details. The agreement outlines, point 1, fee-for-service basis only used when a heritage permit is triggered through the application process. See Schedule A for breakdown of costs. Bullet 2, use of Heritage Office for application processes, review and follow-up and permitting. Bullet 3, supporting the function of the Heritage Board. Bullet 4, liability and insurance coverage. And Bullet 5, termination clause. Note that the town has other similar service agreements with the SNBSC for bylaw enforcement on a fee-for-service basis and is in line with service costing proposed. If council has sufficient information and is comfortable with an agreement as proposed, council can move to approve the agreement. Without a formal agreement in place, there are currently no processes for managing heritage permits. And the motion is as reads, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the Heritage Officer Service Agreement with the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission to oversee the handling of heritage permits and the Heritage Board processes. And I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. We need a seconder. Councillor Neal has seconded. Council, any discussion? And Mr. Spear, I know what we need to do.
There's two things, I guess, Council. This is the first time you've seen it. We discovered in between when we released this package and Friday that there's still a couple of clauses that we need to work out. So we'd like for it to be tabled to be a recommendation at this point. But since we've already got it on the table, if there's anything within the actual agreement you'd like to bring forward for reconsideration, we might as well do that now as we work with them to bring it forward for next meeting. So I would ask that it not be accepted tonight, but we can discuss it if there's anything within it that you have concerns about.
Okay, Councillor Hurdle, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just curious, not that I disagree with the fee schedule, but just for clarification, if maybe we could say where we got the fee structure from?
Mr. Spear?
It's probably better talking to the head of planning, and he had said at the time that they figured that was their time and staff time and all the processes involved in the very special permitting. It doesn't include the time for attending meetings and things, but if Mr. Gopen's available quickly to add to that, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Gopen? Are you still with us?
Yeah, it's based on staff time. I think it's quite similar to some of the agreements we have for dangerous and unsightly enforcement. It's a similar fee structure.
Thank you, Mr. Gopen. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hurdle? Good. Any other discussion, Council? We are going to table this, so I need a mover and a seconder to table this. Councillor Heenan and Councillor Neal. We vote on the tabling. All those in favor of tabling it, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? None, so it's carried. All right. So now, the amended, do we do the utility capital budget, sir? Next? I just gotta get to the right page.
Page 85.
Okay, page 85. So, amended utility capital budget, Counselor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. FA 250326, Municipal Capital Borrowing Board debentures for the Van Horn Trail and Fire Truck. Background. Council approved borrowing from the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board for the work on the Van Horn Trail, $90,000, and the acquisition of a new fire truck at $910,000 in 2021. Now that these projects are complete, we are able to acquire debentures to cover the financing of these. The motion is, be it resolved that the clerk or treasurer and mayor or deputy mayor be authorized to issue and sell to New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation, a municipality of the town of St. Andrews, debentures in the principal sum of $1 million on such terms and conditions as recommended by the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation, and be it resolved that the municipality of the town of St. Andrews agrees to issue post-dated checks payable to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation as and when requested in payment of principal and interest charges on the debentures. Do we want me to read on? Okay, I have to read the action, so it's a municipal order, date, ministerial order, general. Is that it?
So for you, council, ministerial order number,
Okay.
you'll have ministerial order number, date of ministerial order, date of council resolution authorizing application to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board, purpose by function, amount in dollars, and term. So under general, 210-0050 happened on August 17th, 2021. Then the date of council resolution, April 6, 2021, under transportation services, $90,000 for 15 years. And that was for the Van Horn Trail. Number 22-008 was date of ministerial order, January 10th, 2022. Council resolution, December 6th, 2021, under protective services for $910,000 for 15 years for the fire truck.
And thank you. And so moved by me.
Thank you. We need a seconder. Counselor Harland. All right. All those in, discussion first, sorry. Council? Not seeing any discussion. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. The next one is finance and administration, and I would like to ask someone to do my job because I'm doing the mayor. Counselor Heenan, if you wouldn't mind, thank you
Yes.
for volunteering. I appreciate it.
This is FA 250327 and submitted by Deputy Mayor Akaji. The subject, amended utility capital budget 2025. In December, Council approved the 2025 budgets, including for the utility capital budget. As part of that funding, we were hoping to get $320,360 from other levels of government to support the projects. Over the winter, we couldn't identify an active program that would allow for the replacement of in-ground infrastructure, as the current programs prefer increasing housing inventory, which the two projects will not do. Staff are now asking to change the funding model to increase contributions from the Utility Capital Reserve Fund to $202,757 and to increase borrowing to $245,000 from $115,000. The additional requested borrowing increases our debt service ratio less than 1% to 26%. If council approves the amended budget, then a motion for an application to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board should also be made. And the first action is that the council approves the amended utility budget dated March 3rd, 2025 for 2025 to 2029. I so move this, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. We need a seconder. Councillor Blanchard. Discussion, council? Okay, no discussion, so call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
Contrary minded? Carried. All right.
And Your Worship, there's another motion attached to this that's been
Yes,
added.
it's just-
Correct?
Yes.
And the action is motion that the town of St. Andrews submit to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board an application for authorization to borrow $245,000 for a capital expense for the following term and amount. The purpose, environmental health, amount $245,000, and the term would be 15 years, and I so move this.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. We need a seconder. Councillor Harland. Discussion, council? Therefore, no discussion. We will move to the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
Contrary minded? Carried unanimously. All right. Moving right along. Public Works, Councillors Bennett and Councillors Neal. And, Public Works and Public Safety Committee. So, Councillor Bennett, it's on page 99.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is PWPS 250311. The subject is 18 Marshall Road, Bayside, demolition order and removal order as per bylaw number 23-02, dangerous or unsightly premises. The background reads that the town of St. Andrews has been proceeding with enforcement measures under bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw respecting dangerous or unsightly premises in the town of St. Andrews for unsafe structures, derelict vehicles, boats, and trailers at 18 Marshall Road in Bayside. The structures, vehicles, and trailers at 18 Marshall Road fall under bylaw 23-02, sections 5.1.1, any ash, junk, rubbish, or refuse. 5.1.3, a derelict vehicle, equipment, or machinery, or the body, or any part of a vehicle, equipment, or machinery. And section 5.1.4, a dilapidated building. The buildings have been found structurally unsound by the building inspector, and the vehicles, boats, and trailers have been determined to be derelict. As the owners have not complied with the Form 4 notice to comply, council can move to demolish the buildings and remove the vehicles, boats, and trailers under section 10 and 11 of bylaw 23-02. So the motion reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the immediate demolition, cleanup, safe removal, and disposal in an approved landfill facility, the entire structures of Building 1 and Building 3, and vehicles, trailers, and boats listed as outlined in Form 4 Notice to Comply for PID 01234996 at 18 Marshall Road in Bayside, New Brunswick, issued December 10th, 2024, as per sections 11-1 or 11.1.1, 11.1.3, 11.3, 11.4, and 11.5 of bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw respecting dangerous or unsightly premises in the town of St. Andrews. And I so move.
Great, thank you, Councillor Neal. Seconder? Councillor Bennett? Discussion, council? Councillor Weir?
Yes, I was wondering.
Councillor Weir, please use your microphone.
Yeah, microphone, Councillor Weir, sorry.
I was wondering what was meant by immediate. Marshall Road is not plowed from, at least from the north end. And on the south end of the road, it's a private road owned by the province of New Brunswick with a gate on it. So there is not access to it. Accordingly, I couldn't check to see if it was plowed up that far. I know there's a cottage past it because I used to rent it. But, so I'm just wondering what immediate is. Are we gonna wait till the snow goes, or are we gonna do it immediately?
That's our decision, correct?
Through you, Madam
And-
Chair.
And Mr.
You
Knopper?
would see your second motion would
Yeah.
be a call to an RFP. Generally, we put an RFP out for 3 weeks to a month, and then it would be a selection process from there. So you're still probably talking a 2-month period, so we're still talking into springtime before access. I do note bylaw has been out there to double check and make sure notices were posted appropriately, to inspect to see if anybody had actually been out there and the ability to actually get out there, and the answer is yes, we can, because the adjacent property owner has plowed their way through to their cottage. But yes, there is access, but you're still looking at about a 2-month timeline.
And I guess my second question is, this will be a costly proposition. I assume we'll have the right to put a lien on the property, and whether that lien will go ahead of any mortgage liens or bank liens and that type of thing. Will it right up there with property taxes?
Through you,
Okay.
Madam Chair. So the process is the town would apply to the Minister of Finance to apply any expenses that are done by the town to the property tax, and the Minister of Finance would provide the cost of the work completed by the town back to us. So the recouping comes back. It does take time, but there would be a process to which we do attain the funds back, and then any costing is under the acts are put onto the property tax for that particular individual.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper. Councillor Weir? Thank you. Councillor Gomichelle?
Thank you, Worship. I wasn't at the last meeting. I don't know if this came up previously.
No.
It seems, from my perspective, having missed a meeting, seems kind of out just to have appeared. And in future, I'm sure if it's a derelict building, it needs to be removed for safety purposes. That's one thing. But personally, I'd be more comfortable with having a bit of a heads up on any demolitions that come forward. I think it can be a very emotional thing for constituents, and so we should have ample warning that a demolition request is coming forward. Therefore, we could, do a little research, go beat through the bushes, have a look ourselves, and just be prepared for people who might come to a meeting where this is being discussed. I think that it's new that we have, like we just went through this not too long ago, the unsightly premise bylaw, and so it's all new. But I think for myself, I'd be more comfortable with having a bit of a heads up when these are coming forward. For example, I'm looking on Google Maps for Marshall Lane, and there's a Marshall Road and a Marshall Lane, and there's no pictures. And the pictures we have, although there's plenty of them, they're not color. So those are my concerns. Although, if it's a safety concern, I guess that has to trump everything. Thank you for noting my concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Gomichelle. Councillor Weir?
Yes, with respect to Google Maps and the Marshall Road or Lane, whatever you want to call it, Boat Launch Road is the one that the government owns, and Lakeside Drive is identified on Google Maps as Boat Launch Road. I don't know what they call Boat Launch Road, but Google Maps certainly doesn't have the data correct on those roads and around the lake there. Because Lakeside Drive shows a Boat Launch Road. It's not. That's the private road that the government has down to the pump house.
Thank you, Councillor Weir, for that information. Mr. Spear, sorry.
That's right. Thank you, Worship. Just in regards to Councillor Gumichelle's concerns, we did bring this up a couple of weeks ago in the registers. Just to give you a heads up, we've been working with the landowner for months to try to help them meet compliance with the bylaw. But they stopped accepting documentation from us, so this is kind of next step, and we'll still work with them to say, now we can say council's very serious about this, can you comply now type of thing.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Any other discussion, council? If not, we will call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Are you contrary, Councillor Blanchard? You were in favor, sorry. You were a little low on the, he was waving across the room, I'm not sure. Okay, sorry about that. And Councillor Weir? You're in favor, okay. So it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next.
The second motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews directs staff to hire a third-party company to complete the immediate demolition, cleanup, safe removal, and disposal in an approved landfill facility, the entire structures of Building 1 and Building 3, and vehicles, trailers, and boats listed as outlined in Form 4, Notice to Comply for PID 01234-996 at 18 Marshall Road, Bayside, New Brunswick, issued December 10th, 2024, as per sections 11.1.1, 11.1.3, 11.3, 11.4, and 11.5 of bylaw number 23-02, a bylaw respecting dangerous or unsightly premises in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. We need a seconder, Councillor Bennett. Discussion, Council? Councillor Michelle.
Again, so if the building isn't safe, I understand that, and it would be expensive to take the building down, but the vehicles, it seems it's going to be quite an expensive proposition for these people who, I don't know who they are, but is it necessary to include the vehicles in the cleanup? And I don't know the spot, frankly.
Councillor, Mr. McNopper.
Through you, Madam Chair, under your policy for derelict vehicles that was approved by council to go with the dangerous and unsightly premises, that was thoroughly reviewed by law enforcement, as well as opinions received by the building inspector regarding the vehicles that were on site. Many are overgrown, are not movable, flat tires, are basically sitting there in the long grass. So if they have the ability to move, if they had the ability to start and actually function, that's actually part of your derelict policy that we have to look at. None of the items here would meet that qualification for starting. For example, holes in the boats that could sink. There's a camper with a collapsed roof, etc. To give you examples of things that are there that are derelict.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. Councillor Gomichelle, does that answer your question?
This is a fairly significant change. I mean, you don't have to go very far out into the woods to find old camps and old vehicles, and so anybody that has an old vehicle on their property is responsible, or could be, under this bylaw, have to pay to, okay, just putting it out there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gomichelle. Any other further discussion? Oh, Mr. Spear.
Yeah, I just want to bring it to council's attention. I think I'd mentioned in the staff reports earlier, not tonight, but others, but this was brought about because of a complaint from multiple neighbors. And so staff isn't going out looking for people that are not in compliance. We wait till we hear from the community, and they asked for this. And like I said, this has been going on for months and months to try to help deal with this.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Councillor Weir.
Yes, my understanding when we did pass that bylaw that it would only be enforced if there was a complaint. And
that's
I know
correct.
the history of this one, so.
Yeah, and that's always, even before it applied, prior to the local governance, that was the way it was always in the old, in the old town. Before the LSDs, it was always a complaint-driven process that the bylaw team didn't go out looking for places to submit to this.
All right. Councillor Hurdle, sorry. I did get your name right, though.
That's okay. Thanks. I have to go fishing for the mute button. I just want to echo also Councillor Grimichelle's point. Just want to make sure that we're erring on the side heavily on due diligence on this one. Obviously, it's difficult to paint each situation with broad strokes, and each one's unique and individual. I just want to make sure that, and I hear what you're saying, that we are going the way of education, communication, trying to work with the proponents. But I just, want to make sure due diligence is really followed in these circumstances.
I believe it's so.
Madam Chair, as staff, we made sure we looked at everything with a fine-tooth comb with this. There was no inkling from our standpoint. We made sure if it met the bylaw qualifications and the policy qualifications. That was what we used as the jurisdictional. I can say definitely within the processes and actually written in your bylaw is that in order for us to even look at a demolition of a building inspector must go on site, must inspect, and must provide us a report. That's even in the act. So we can't act on anything on buildings unless the building inspector has said so. So within that, we've tried to make sure all the I's were dotted, T's were crossed when looking at this file.
Thank you, Mr. Nopper, and thanks to our bylaw
Thank you very
officer.
much.
Any more discussion? So the question is, aye, or all those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. Next. It is the Economic and, Economic Development, Business, and Culture Committees, Councilors Hurdle and Councilors Weir.
Page
No, it doesn't.
Page 125, bylaw
125, oh, sorry, missed one. Bylaw number 25-01, and this is the continuation of yours, Councilor Neat. Councilor Bennett, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. Next on the agenda is PWP S250315. Subject is bylaw number 25-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews, first reading. The background reads, based on the discussion from February 18th, 2025, regular council meeting, staff have updated the draft vehicle bylaw to reflect the proposed changes, which include maintaining 40-kilometer-hour speed limit in town, commercial trailers and pylons, for-profit ride share programs, school zone speed limit, administrative penalties up to $500, no camping on town streets, parking lots and parks, Queen Street intersection parking restrictions, one-way street timings. Bylaw process to date, public open house February 5th, 2025, public hearing of objections February 18th, 2025, first reading, second reading, third and final reading. If council is comfortable with the bylaw, they can proceed to first reading. Note, council can still amend the bylaw up to third and final reading. And the motion before us tonight reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews grants leave of the first reading to bylaw number 25-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews. And I so move.
Thank you, Councilor Bennett. We need a seconder. Councilor Gurmichel. Discussion, Council.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just one point of recommended change. We can do it for the next version. In the schedules where we talk about the one-way street, staff were looking at it today. We had said starting the second weekend of May.
Yes.
It's recommended we start the Monday after the second weekend of May because we have the townwide yard sale going on, and that we have the no parking on Queen Streets, and we start adding those in, so it creates a bit of confusion. So it's recommended we start on that Monday after that weekend.
After the second Sunday in May.
Yes.
Second Sunday in May. Thank you very much, Mr. Nopper. So we have to do the amendment, no?
If you want to call it a friendly, we'll add it to the next version of the bylaw.
Can we call it a friendly, Council? Yes. Thank you very much. So now we will vote on the...
Well, no, if you have any other discussions from council.
Any more discussion? Since we're just changing that to instead of being Sunday, it'll be Monday. I don't see any, so call for the vote. All those in favor, aye. Contrary minded, carried. So I have to read it by title. Thank you very much. Bylaw number 25-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicular traffic in the town of St. Andrews. Do I read the Council of St. Andrews? Okay, the Council of the Town of St. Andrews, under the authority of the Motor Vehicle Act, Chapter 17, the Provincial Offences Procedure Act, Chapter P-22.1, the Highway Act, H-5, the Local Governance Act, Bill 44, Article 10, and next, a bylaw as follows. 1 is the definition. 2 is the schedule amendments. 3 is the authority of peace officers. 4 is the provincial highway. 5 is speed limits. 6 is non-vehicular traffic. 7 is angled and parallel parking. 8, bus stops and bus parking. 9, school zones. 10, no parking at any time. 11, overnight parking. 12, accessible parking. 13, limited parking. 14, one-way streets. 15, pedestrian crosswalks. 16, traffic signals. 17, signs and yield signs. 18, restriction on street use.
Restriction on street use.
Restrictions on street use. Okay, now it makes sense. 19, vehicle idling. 20, parades and processions. 21, off-road vehicles. 22, rideshare programs. 23, no overnight camping on town streets, parking lots, or parks. 24, designated parking. 25, offenses and administrative penalties. 26, bylaw repealed. And this is read for the first time the third day of March 2025. Thank you. March 2025. Okay. So now, Recreation, no.
159,
Economic
Council.
Development and Business and Cultural Committee, Councilors Hurdle and Weir. The first one is the bylaw number 25-02.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is in reference to EBC 250101. And the subject is bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks. The third and final reading, submitted by myself. The background is bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks in the town of St. Andrews, is being presented to replace bylaw number 75, which has been in place since 1985. This bylaw has provisions to address and regulate these business opportunities in the community. Please see the attached document for a copy of the bylaw. The following bylaw processes have taken place. Public hearing of objections, February 3rd, 2025. First reading was February 3rd, 2025. The second reading was February 18th, 2025. And the third and final reading could be today. The staff updated section 7.2.3 as per the council's request. In discussion with staff, we recommend we remove the locations for each section, peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks, into Schedule D of the bylaw to give flexibility to council on updating locations with one reading of council. This is not a significant change to the bylaw, as it is shifting information already in the bylaw to a schedule. If council is in agreement with the bylaw changes, council can proceed to the third and final reading. So would that be an amendment?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's already within the bylaw presented to you now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Nalper?
The motion before us is that the council of the town of St. Andrews grants leave for third and final reading to bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. And seconder, Councillor Harland. Any more discussion, council? There being none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried unanimously.
Madam Chair, you just have to read the actual
know,
title of the
read it by
bylaw.
title.
But just the title, because we've gone
Oh,
through
just
it
the title.
multiple
Oh,
times.
Lovely. Bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw regulating the licensing of peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food and trucks in the town of St. Andrews. And that's it. Thank you very much. And that's read today, March the 3rd, 2025, so the third and final reading. All right. So we're at the third day, March 2025, okay? All right. So we are now in Recreation and Environment Committee, Councilors Gummichelle and Blanchard, and who reads this one, which is the road closures for the solar eclipse on the solar eclipse event, March 28th and 29th, 2025, RE 250305. Councilor Gummichelle.
Thank you, Worship. There's two motions, and I seem to have got both of them. Maybe Mr. Blanchard would read the second one.
Sorry, I can't hear you. What did you
I'll
say?
speak up. Sorry. The subject is road closure for solar eclipse event, March 28th to 29th, 2025, and the background reads, Cliff Valley Astronomy is hosting a viewing event for the upcoming early morning solar eclipse on Saturday, March 29th, 2025. They are hosting additional community events for Friday, March 28th, 2025, leading up to the eclipse. For the best viewing of the eclipse, Cliff Valley Astronomy is seeking to set up their viewing equipment on the roadway at Indian Point. They are seeking a 12-hour road closure of Indian Point from 9 p.m. on the 28th to 9 a.m. on the 29th. Anyone from the public is invited to participate in the viewing event and are encouraged to come down to Indian Point. Staff have met with Cliff Valley Astronomy and have proposed the following road closure. Firstly, notification of the road closure will be placed at Patrick Street and Water Street and Prince of Wales Street by the Exercise Park. This will consist of signs and warnings notifying of the road closure ahead. And secondly, barriers will be placed by each end of the Kiwanis campground. Barriers and road closure signs will be provided by the town. They will be placed so that vehicles can still turn around in the parking lots and driveways of the campground. See map for details. Cliff Valley Astronomy will set up and take down the barriers. And the motion reads, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the road closure of Water Street around Indian Point for Cliff Valley Astronomy Solar Eclipse event for Friday, March 28th, 9 p.m. to Saturday, March 29th, 2025 at 9 a.m. And I would make that motion, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Gomichelle. Seconder, Councillor Heenan. Discussion, Council? Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship and Council, just making sure all safety precautions would be met if this road closure was underway, that fire trucks could get through if need be. Am I correct, Mr. Knopper?
I think so.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Councillor, Mr. Spear, sorry.
Yeah, I guess two things, Your Worship. Just for a little bit of clarity, it says about turning around in the campground. There's actually two turnarounds right on whatever that's called, Water Street or Indian Point Road. So they don't have to go through the campground. So if anyone's concerned about that, no, there's just two small gravel areas that people can turn around. I would ask that the motion be amended to include those two items that the clerk has put above. You don't necessarily have to read them, just or add as under terms and conditions as set by the CAO, then we'll just include them after to make sure they follow those, including the concerns by Councillor Heenan.
Is that a friendly amendment?
Probably
Council?
should amend it.
It has to be amended, so I need a first amendment by Councillor Heenan and seconded by Councillor Bennett. The amendment. Do you understand the amendment? Yes, okay. We don't have to put it together?
Vote for the amendment.
Okay, first we will vote for the amendment. Amendment. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Now we will vote for the actual motion, which is already have a mover and a seconder. So, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. All right, oops, sorry. Wrong one. All right. Oops, sorry.
Mark, you want to do this?
So now we will go to the new business, and for that I have to refuse my seat. I need a volunteer to be the mayor, deputy mayor in.
You need someone to be the chair.
I need someone to be the chair. Look at all the volunteers, you guys. Okay, thank you. Councillor Neal has said he will chair. I will leave the room.
Okay, Councilor, are we going to Councilor Blanchard?
Sure, I can take it. So reference number RE 250306. Subject is a community assistance grant request drum and rattle workshop, March 15th, 2025. Background, the town of St. Andrews has received a request for a community assistance grant to support the drum and rattle workshop on Saturday, March 15th, 2025. With the event coming forward, this request is time sensitive. See the application attached for details. Note the following changes. Due to the limited number of registrants, the program will now be a half-day session with 10 drums and 10 rattles available. Originally, it was 20 drums and rattles each. The cost of the drumkeeper instructor, mileage, and overnight stay costs are being covered by the Peskotomuhkati Nation at Skutik of approximately $800. The request is for funds up to $1,000. There are also $500 in funding from the Truth and Reconciliation Fund that are anticipated to be used. Currently, there are 5 drums and up to 7 rattles registered. Drums and rattles not covered by registration would be the ownership of the town and can be provided as gifts or for designated uses. Any funds not spent from the grant would be returned to the town for other grant distributions. Please see attached budget section for details. And the motion before council is that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the community assistance grant funding for the drum and rattle workshop on Saturday, March 15th, 2025, for funding up to $1,000 to support any shortfalls in the program. Funds not spent will be returned to the town for future use, and I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Keenan? Any discussions? Comments, questions? Councillor Harlan?
Have we supported these workshops before? And to what amount?
Through you, Your Worship, it's been about $1,000 each time, but it's, and again, in a similar motion that if it's not used, it's returned back to the town.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? It's no one. I think that's passed. All right, we'll let the deputy mayor come back out.
Thank you, Councillor Neal, for stepping in. All right, new business. Oh, we did that. There is a second, isn't there, in the new business? No?
Through you, Madam Chair, we dealt with that in the actual motions when we were looking at the Municipal Capital
I had
Board.
written too. It's okay. Thank you. So now we're at question period. Mr. Nopper, are there any questions online?
Through you, Madam Chair, due to the technical issues, we don't have anybody Zooming or streaming online tonight, so I have no questions that I can see. Give me 1 second for any further participant. Give me 1 second. For anybody that is online that would like to raise their hand and have a question for council, do so now. You have 1 person watching.
Okay.
Last call. If you have a question on anything or comment on tonight's agenda, please raise your hand. Nothing from online, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nopper. From the audience, is there any questions or any response? No. Councillor and Mayor, Deputy Mayor's comments. Councillor Weir?
Yes, I'd just like get some idea when we might have the public consultations on the municipal plan for the, particularly the wards. I'm getting a lot of questions on zoning and what impact it's going to have, particularly in the agricultural sector and the industrial sector.
We'll have to confirm with the planners for sure, but I'm assuming in April. He's promised to have early draft documentations through this month, so we'll be able to go to public consultation in April is the expectation. We'll get some dates and report to council back next meeting.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Any others? Councillor Neal?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Gumashel on his arduous weekend completing the 4x4x48 David Goggins Challenge, in which he ran 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Wow.
To help raise money for a local family. So.
And Councillor Neal was out for a few of the laps himself, and did
That's
it
very
was,
nice.
there's a lot of people in town. We were able to raise $500 to our suicide awareness for a local family. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for that note. I thank you for doing that for our town and community, and for what you raised, the money. It will be greatly appreciated, I know, and used. I would like to expand about the drum and rattle workshop, because we have tried 3 times to get a drum and rattle workshop done, and unfortunately we just can't seem to get enough people. Although everybody says they would like to do it, it's not that we're getting the participation. So with the consultation of the group that I work with, we decided that we're only going to host 10 rattles and 10 drums on March the 15th. I'm hoping that the drum maker will approve that of just doing only 10. I think we can get that many to each to be able to participate. And then we would like the drummer to come back and do a drum workshop on drumming, learning how to use your drum, doing some singing and chanting, which I think I know everybody has been asking for. I think we might get a bigger group out then. We've been trying to do workshops, but it's just, this is my last ditch effort for doing this. It's we seem to get, we have to do a lot of work to get it together, and asking for your assistance or the Truth and Reconciliation, because this is one of the, the 94 calls to action that we wanted to do, was do some workshops for cultural and education teaching. And I thank the drummer, Greg Mansfield, for coming, but it is expensive to get him here because, travel and his using him all day. So I think the second we have the using your drums and whatnot, it will be more beneficial, and I think he can share his culture and his educational teachings, but teach you how to care for your drum, use it, and maybe learn a couple of songs that we can do on Truth and Reconciliation Day in September, the end of September. So I want to thank especially Mr. Knopper, because he's been a great asset for me to bounce things off, and to staff, because they've been supportive, and to you, the council, who's been very supportive of the indigenous activities that we have tried to do. And even though I think this is great, it's just we've tried different days, it doesn't seem to be working. So I hope that the drumming will work with actual use of using the drums and the rattles for Truth and Reconciliation Day in September. Thank you very much, and I think that's all I wanted to say. Yes, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody in the community, and tomorrow is Shrove Tuesday, which is the beginning of Lent. Pancakes at the All Saints Anglican Church by donation. They're going, I think, from 4 to 6 or 3 to 6. 4 to 6, I think it's 4 to 6. So there will be pancakes, sausages, and lovely camaraderie there. So please come. Start your Lenten off with pancakes and sausages. So thank you very much. And we have a closed session. No, we don't have a closed session. So with that being done, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Heenan and Councillor Gomichel. So at 8:20 p.m., we are adjourned.
Madam Chair, you actually have to do the vote.
Oh, I have to do the vote. I always get excited. All those in favor? I don't think there'll be anybody that says no to adjournment. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, Council, for your patience and support while I get through this tonight.